Thanks. Well, now's as good a time as any, Mr. Newman. Take her down to periscope depth.
Yes, sir. Clear the bridge.
Dive! Stand right.
Oh, I'm muted. Greetings. Thank you all who saw my debate with TJump. I was called at the very last minute. James contacted me and said, I want someone for TJump. You came to mind, so I'm very grateful. Dapper Dino just sent me a letter. He wants to join the show, and I'm going to send him a link. So, hang on. Now, the reason I'm interested in talking to Dapper Dino, he actually was very critical of, Dapper is a scholar of Christian history, and I asked him, what do you think about Richard Carrier's mythicism? So let me just make sure that he's got the right one. Emery Moyna is going to join. He told me he'll join. So we're going to try to have some biology people. I haven't heard David Neff was supposed to join. So there's a reason that I selected this panel. I'm trying to get, I kind of alluded to it a little bit in the debate when I said I'm going to explore eukaryotic evolution a little more. And it's something I want to explore this coming year because I think I have something that can break universal common ancestry, and that's right at the root, eukaryotic evolution. So I want to be on talking terms with people who are biologists, and I want to see if they can prove me wrong. So let me see. Someone named Voice Under, I only caught the very end of the debate, but Sal, you seem like a good guy, so I'm here. Well, welcome. So welcome to all, especially those that are first-time viewers. Oh, David Neff is here.
Hey, Sal. I'm just going to say that was a fantastic debate. I really enjoyed that discussion.
Thank you. All right, so now first thing, there's many frequent comers like logical probable or John Maddox. I'm going to get your name wrong. I'm sorry. If you want to have a after show where you have the usual gang there, I will cut this. You can advertise the link here, and you just tell me when, and I'll stop this show, and so you could have that gang. So this night, I'm actually taking a little effort to reach out to our usual opponents, because I actually feel that they're going to be very important for me and really everyone in this coming year as we try to as I try to test out teaching materials. Dr. James Carter, who's a biochemist, and I will be working on a creationist graduate level course on creationism. And I said, well, we can air some of the chapters on YouTube. He said, that's a great way to get peer review. I said, that's exactly what I want to do. So I have my peer reviewers here in his image, Dapper Dinosaur and David Neff. Thank you very much for joining the after show. As I mentioned, I'm just trying to avoid a fight tonight on this after show. But if you guys want to fight and have a different bunch of people.
All right, I'll put away my boxing gloves.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say logical, plausible, probable. If you want to start a after show where you can get more of the regular gang there, just let me know. You can advertise it on this channel and work out a time. So
I was actually.
Can you change your name to Emery? Can I change your name? I can't change your name. You'll have to do it yourself.
Let me see if I can. Yeah.
I was asked to tell you, Sal, that Erica is on her way in. She just got home from a drive, and she is making, I think, some tea or something. So she's on her way in, but she needs to get her liquid refreshments. You know, it's very important. Got to stay hydrated, even though tea isn't going to help you with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Sal, I just want to say that was a phenomenal debate. I really enjoyed the discussion. I want to commend both of you for having a respectful dialogue. And I think that is one of the things that is missing in today's world, is just having a respectful discussion between each other. Oh, and by the way, Sal, Merry Christmas to you.
Oh, thank you. Merry Christmas to you too, David. Oh, there, Emery.
I actually have a couple of questions for you. They didn't get a chance to ask in the show, but I've been thinking about the issue of abiogenesis and stuff like that. And
yes, can you hang on just 1 second?
Yeah,
I'd like Emery to introduce himself. Emery, my apologies to you. Our show went into cyberspace, and I just wanted to get you on record. Who did you vote for between Dr. Dan, Kent Hovind, or PZ Myers to be?
It was Dr. Dan. It was Dr.
There
Dan.
you go. Okay. So there we got it from a creationist biology grad student. So I just wanted to say I wasn't making that up. So Emery, some people don't know who you are. Could you introduce? We'll just go around. Emery, and then David, and then Dapper. If you could all introduce yourselves.
Sure. My name is Emery Moyna. I mean, I guess that's not my actual name, but it's what I go by on the internet. So it is the internet. It is what it is. I blog. I do YouTube videos. I do podcasts. And I managed to get my work some time in there for grad school as well. So I'm not too hard to find, I don't think. I know Dapper already has found me and is regular, respectful. We have regular, respectful discussions, which is always a plus.
We do. It's very nice.
Yeah, that's about all for me. This is Sal's home. I just drop in when I get invited.
Well, I'm glad you came by, because then we have two creationist guys who study biology, and I felt it really helps to have our side represented by people that also study biology. And David.
Yes, hi. So good to see you. And my name is David Neff. I am an undergrad student right now. I'm getting ready to transfer from community college into university. I just got my acceptance letter to the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, UMBC.
Congrats.
Well,
Nice.
thank you.
Good for you.
And there's also a really high chance. I'm still waiting for the University of Colorado, but they said that I have a good chance of being accepted. So once I go over there, I will be studying molecular, cellular, and developmental biology. So that is one of the things that I'm interested in. I'm interested in virology, stem cell research, and origins of life, and lots of other things.
Outstanding. And Dapper.
Oh, I'm just some guy on the internet who likes to talk about paleontology, and I also like to call out particularly bad takes on things like geology and paleontology and things like that. I've got a channel, Dapper Dinosaur. Most weeks there are 3 uploads. My next stream is going to be on Saturday, so if anyone's watching is interested in that, I'm going to be talking with my regular co-host for my Tuesday show about his fairly recent exit from Young Earth Creationism. He was a Young Earth Creationist up until probably about 4 years ago. So,
Just on a quick note, I wish I could get 3 videos up a week.
Same here.
Look, I spent the entire day today putting together an 11-minute video talking about how badly wrong atheists get the Council of Nicaea.
Oh yeah, I feel you there. I am with you 100%, Dapper Dino. It's so frustrated when people spout out the Council of Nicaea and all the other stuff, like the Jesus was a ripoff from Zeus and all of that type of stuff.
My goodness.
I want to no.
I'm probably also going to do something on that.
It's wrong, and you're making us look like fools when you say these stupid things.
Yeah. Look, criticize Christianity all you want, but don't lie about it.
Yeah,
that's my bare minimum. It's just don't lie about Christianity. Why would you do that? Who are you helping?
Right. And I think it should be clear. A lie is something that you know is to be wrong. So maybe they're just ignorant on the Council of Nicaea. There's a lot of myths going on the internet. And it really bothers me that big names such as Aaron Ra repeats these myths. But
it bugs me too.
And we've
been joined by a gibbon.
Yep.
That's me.
And we got Erica. We're just going around introductions, and I was explaining the reason I selected this panel is I have kind of an ulterior motive. James Carter, and I've talked to Change Tan. We've had bumped around the idea of like open courses, creationism at the graduate level in biology. And so you are the hostile peer review panel. And I just wanted, not to mention, that's in addition to the fact that I really like you guys. So
when did I become hostile?
Except for Emery. Oh my goodness.
I will say, Sal, I really like you too. You're my favorite Young Earth creationist.
Oh, thank you.
I was going to say, yeah, I'm known for being hyper aggressive and very savage in my peer reviews. That's my reputation.
The only thing I'm concerned about with you, Eric, is getting you to stop long enough for Sal to actually say something.
True. That's fair enough. That is fair enough.
I wanted to show this screen. This is, and I have to give hat tip. Literal. I love your top hat there, Dapper. But I learned something from Dapper this week, and I'm going to show a picture of it. This is Santa Claus, the real Santa Claus. Dapper, maybe you can explain this. Can you?
Yeah, Daps, tell us all about it.
Oh, sorry, I had my audio there. So basically, this is a scene from the First Council of Nicaea. And what you're looking at here is St. Nicholas, the Bishop of Myra, punching the heresiarch, if you will, Arius, because he was so offended by his teachings. And shortly after this, actually immediately after this, the Emperor's Guard arrested St. Nicholas, stripped him naked, and tossed him in a jail cell. Because the dude is basically on trial here, and he hasn't been convicted of anything. He hasn't been condemned of anything. He's just telling his side. You're not allowed to just go up in the courtroom and just punch the defendant in the face because you don't like what he's saying. It's not allowed. So Emperor Constantine was like, nope. Santa, off to jail.
The point of this is that's the real Santa Claus.
Yep.
And I don't know, that was just a totally random thought that I was going to try to make a point in the debate, and that image kind of came to mind. I mean, when we think of St. Nicholas, we normally think, let me see if I could bring this up. We normally think something that looks like that, right? So,
right. Yeah.
Since we're talking about Christian history, so I want to thank all the visitors. This is probably setting a record for the number of people that have come. So now that I have my peer review committee here, and I did promise in the debate, they wanted to ask, I said, if you want to come to the after show, and I'll try to make this at least 10 minutes, but at least I can get it off my conscience that I'm going to follow through with why I don't think common ancestry is real, even though I've already said that I accept that nested hierarchies are real. So all of this phylogenetic systematics, I'm not saying that you all will rule, I'm not asking for an opinion today, but I felt, let me show the diagram that I have in mind. And since David Neff is going to be studying molecular stuff, and I'm glad to have someone like-minded, not only do he and I like classical music, he kind of likes the molecular side of biology. So this is a picture of eukaryotic cell. When we have, if we assume that phylogeny proceeds by and large by random mutations, particularly the changes with some natural selection changing the sequences of the proteins and RNA, DNA over time. This example, if we have a prokaryote or prokaryote-like creature evolving into a creature like a eukaryote that has a nucleus, there are many simultaneous changes that have to happen on that homologue. And that includes, I'm just going to go to the RPS3 here. And so it's not pictured here, but the RNA has to go through a nuclear pore complex. That means it needs a sequence, a localization sequence, or whatever we call it, an export signal sequence. It has to change there. And then it's going to go out of the nuclear pore, go to the ribosome, it's going to get translated, and then it has to have another sequence to join with an importine, and that goes right back into the nucleus, so that's yet another sequence. And then it gets processed more, and then this needs an export sequence. There needs to be so many simultaneous changes that this is kind of indistinguishable from a miracle. So I'll just argue that, let's just assume for the sake of argument there's common ancestry. To me, this looks like there needs to be a miracle to affect it. I didn't have a chance to walk through it, and it would totally blow over the head of my audience. We had about 500 people today in that discussion. So people ask, why do you believe in nested hierarchies and you believe that they're created? This is one part of that answer. So at least I've got it off my conscience. We'll have a chance to talk about this through the rest of the, God willing, 2021. But that's just really to fulfill my word to my audience that came over here, just so they could see it, that I wasn't, that I didn't just make it up. Because I'd really rather we just have a good time here on a Friday night. And now we can talk about other topics.
I actually have a quick question, though. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding your basic argument. Because, I mean, I'm sure you're going to go into more depth on this some other time, and I'll pay attention there. But just for my own satisfaction. So you're arguing that the implausibility of the development of a nucleus within a previously non-nucleated cell, which has some kind of DNA, is that the essentially import-export system from the membrane of the nucleus is implausible to have evolved through mutation and selection.
That is correct.
Okay, just making sure I got that.
Yes. Oh boy, you got it. Oh my goodness. At least you understood the argument. And
sometimes that's a big deal for me.
Huh? Oh,
sometimes just understanding the argument is a big deal for me, because sometimes people say the same things and I'm just like, what is even the point of this? I don't know.
You totally got it, because what I was trying to point out is you can still get these nested hierarchies if we assume that there was a miracle. And I'm just arguing you still need a miracle. This is basically one example of why I think the nested hierarchies in biology, are at least parts of that nested hierarchy, are best explained by a miracle. Okay. And that you totally got my argument. And so the reason I did a show with Erica is I wanted to tell my creationist colleagues, and there's this article by Casey Luskin, who's my colleague, and he was saying, yeah, nested hierarchies don't exist. I was like, what are you saying, dude?
No, they objectively exist to an incredibly high degree of confidence.
Okay, so I need to dig that up, because I was just like horrified. I said, dude, these kids are going to go off to college and they're going to be surprised. At the time, he wasn't studying biology, so I'm going to cut him some slack.
Yeah.
So he may have just been repeating the talking points he was hearing, and I'm just like, these kids go off to college, or people that have heard you and they find out that's not the case, they may feel that they're lied to. I said that you just, just not good for them. I'd rather people be acquainted with the problems in their own theory, then you give them something that isn't right, and then they go off believing it, and then they get it overturned. It's just going to be devastating. So I'd rather, I guess the term is to kind of inoculate them from that. So you all, if you want to talk, this is a good time, because I need to take care of Mom for a little bit.
Okay.
So Erica, if you want to advertise your channel or whatever you want, I just need to get her some food.
No. Yeah, listen, Sal, if there's one thing that this crew, I think, can handle, it's filling up airtime with talking.
Yeah, none of us are bad at that, but it does leave Emery alone as the lone creationist in the room.
Oh, Emery. Listen, Emery, all Emery needs to do, he knows my kryptonite. He's just going to say, Erica, you're monologuing. And then I go, oh my God. Zip it right up. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how Sal wants to run things. I think usually the way that these after shows go is we kind of go around and give our impressions of the conversation. How do you guys feel about that?
That's fine by me.
That's fine by me. Good by me.
Yeah, and I thought it was a great conversation. It was really respectful, very courteous.
Yeah, it was definitely. There were not too many heated words exchanged, and it stayed reasonably calm and respectful.
Yeah.
So that was a good thing.
Yeah. I think, I mean, God, that's like the hardest thing to get in these kinds of internet debates is like a civil discourse. So honestly, checking that one off the list is always, I'm always super psyched to see that. I think from my perspective, given the topic being like Christianity versus atheism, I think I would have enjoyed the conversation kind of getting out of the bounds of like abiogenesis and evolution, just because I feel like these kinds of conversations almost inexorably get dragged to that place. And for those of us who aren't as good as at history or some of the other lines of evidence that I think Christianity and atheism tend to quibble over, I'm always excited to see arguments over things that I don't know anything about. So, but that was more of a personal preference.
I can kind of see where you're coming from on that, and frankly, like the topic though is just so broad.
True,
yeah.
That's fair.
That, I mean, you kind of have to go somewhere, and now it doesn't necessarily have to be abiogenesis, but you do kind of have to go somewhere and just stay there. Because if you don't, you are going to be. Who knows where you'll end up? You could end up anywhere from multiverse to morality. I mean, you just go anywhere.
See, the interesting thing is, for me, if I were told, okay, Dapper, you're gonna be in an atheism Christianity debate, which, by the way, is not a debate I would normally ever agree to. However, let's just say that for some reason I am put into this debate. Now, whichever side I'm on, my focus is just going to be the resurrection of Christ. If it happened, Christianity is broadly true. If it didn't, it's broadly false. Nothing about abiogenesis is going to affect that fact. Nothing about cosmology. If the universe is 14.5 billion years old and Jesus was resurrected, Christianity is true. If the universe is 6,000 years old and Jesus died and rotted in a grave, Christianity is false.
And I completely agree with that approach. I think that is the best approach to make. I think there's a lot of problems with the whole resurrection narrative. But again, this really is not the time to talk about it. I actually did ask Sal if he would be up for doing a debate on the resurrection of Jesus. So that should be something to look forward to.
I would like to see that because
just tell me when and I'll be there.
There you go. I really do think that's what nails home at the heart of. I mean, it's even called out in the Bible, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
if Christ is not raised from the dead, then your faith is in vain, and you're still dead in your sins.
Exactly. The New Testament itself says, "Hey, this is the heart of the issue. Did Jesus die for your sins and rise again? Yes. Then Christianity is all good. No, then it's not." And now we can have later arguments. If we come down on the yes side, we can have arguments about, the nitty gritty details of Christology and, aspects about the Trinity, and we can hash out all those things like were hashed out in various, councils and whatnot. But that's, for me, the key point there for Christianity. There's a central truth claim to Christianity. If it's true, then whatever else is true, Christianity is broadly correct. You should have faith in Jesus Christ as your Savior, and that is an important thing for you to do for your eternal salvation and all that. Or it's not, and your belief in Jesus is going to be of no help to you in any form of afterlife or no afterlife. Like that, those are the options.
Yeah, I think too, given the broad, I think Emery's right. Like the broad nature, it was bound to go down one pathway and end up on one topic and really digging the nails into that topic, be it something like morality or history, or in this case, abio and evolution. I think that from my perspective, I think that my kind of bugaboo with going down the abio and evolution kind of rabbit hole is because I think that it tends to differentiate decently well between like philosophies of naturalism and like general theism, but I don't think that it really has necessarily anything to say about Christianity versus atheism per se. Because there are both atheists who don't believe in abio and evolution, and then there are Christians who do. So I don't think that it does a great job at necessarily parsing out those two perspectives. So I think
you can be an atheist vitalist or something like that. You can, that's there. I don't know of any, but there have been atheist vitalists in the past, and there's no reason, logically, that you couldn't be one now. In which case, you don't have to believe in a naturalistic, by physical means, sort of abiogenesis event. You can believe in things like, a somewhat spiritual but not divinely ordered vital force exists in the universe in some kind of spiritual way. Because the thing about atheism is it's a question of what it tells me when you say you're an atheist is it tells me what your stance is on the existence of gods. It doesn't tell me what your stance is on the existence of the supernatural. It doesn't tell me what your stance is on the age of the universe. It doesn't tell me any of those things. It just tells me, when asked, do you believe in gods? Or say, do you believe no gods exist? To be more accurate according to formal philosophy. If your answer is no, then you're an atheist. That's great. But does that mean that you believe in evolution? No. Does it mean you believe in the standard model of cosmology? No. It tells me nothing.
Exactly. And I would agree with that because there's a lot of pseudoscientific ideas of cosmology, such as the electric universe.
Oh, goodness. That nonsense.
Oh yeah, definitely. So, and just because you're an atheist doesn't mean you're rational. Aaron Ra had someone on his channel a few months ago.
It's 2020. It might as well have been 10 years ago. Who cares?
Yeah. Who knows? And he was talking about he's an atheist but believes in reincarnation. So, how is that supposed to work? I don't know.
Well, it's fine. If you have a definition for a god, right, which usually involves some kind of immense power and some degree of immortality and things like that. If you believe in other things that don't meet that kind of definition, the kind of thing that we would normally call a god, you can believe whatever other supernatural stuff you want. If you believe there aren't any gods, you can still believe in reincarnation because you can think that there's some kind of spiritual essence to the self that is able to enter into a new physical body, and none of that has to involve any god. So.
Right, or you could take a view of panpsychism and say that, okay, everything in the universe has some level of consciousness, and therefore consciousness somehow survives death. Even though you might not remember your life, you might still have some level of consciousness somewhere else.
Yeah.
That is definitely possible within an atheistic framework. That being said, I do not subscribe to panpsychism, nor do I subscribe to anything supernatural.
As as a quick side note, Sunflower and Sphincter of Doom are wanting to hop in on the chat, so we need to remember to ask Sal when he returns if there's room for anyone else or like kind of what he wants to do.
By the way,
I think on the free version he only has one more room.
Yeah, speaking of which, Orgay and Leophilius also asked if they could come in. I said no because I'm just waiting for, because I thought this was just going to be just us, all of us. Oh, hey, Sal, there you are.
Yes,
Hey,
I'm back. And just a quick announcement. I probably will have just a short after show. I know a lot of people want to join for an open mic, but I decided that I'll let someone else host an open mic. So if someone would like to have an open mic, just they'll have to host it. Just try to provide a link or contact, and we can do that. Let's see.
I wanted to let you know. So the guy Sphincter of Doom who said he would like to have a discussion with you, that's a personal friend of mine. We were Navy buddies. So
well done.
If you want to help me to help kind of either like moderate or help coordinate any of that stuff, let me know. He's a good guy. He's an engineer. He's a chemical engineer, and he was in the Navy with me. He was a nuclear mechanic. So.
Yeah.
Well,
by the way, Sal,
I mean, I don't want to offend anyone. It's just that I'm a little bit tired and I can't really run the show. And then there's some fights that break out, and I don't want to be getting in the middle of it. So that's all. And like I said, you guys, I'm trying to just extend a novelist branch and say, I hope you'll, when I post stuff specifically on over the next year about this, why I don't believe in universal common ancestry, I welcome your criticisms. I want to get stuff right in terms of like, did I get my technical stuff right? You don't have to agree with the inferences, but if I say something really stupid in terms of chemistry, it'd be valuable that I get corrected.
By the way,
sorry, just real quick. I was asked what I did in the Navy, and I just want to answer that real quick. So I was a nuclear electrician on an aircraft carrier. There you go.
Oh, wow.
So I worked in the reactor department as an electrician on an aircraft carrier.
That was asked by Sandy Pigeon, our resident Navy SEAL. Sir, so I had an interview with Sandy. He came here and gave us Christian testimony, and we didn't get to talk about many of his SEAL adventures, but he did give his testimony here. So everyone, you're welcome to look that up. So I just wanted to explain what was going on tonight. I really don't like to do too many debates. Who knows if I end up getting snagged into more of them. So you're just
gonna have to learn to say no.
Yeah, I need to learn to say no. And
actually, I've said no a few times.
Yeah, and I need to because the boss wrote me today and he said, "Where's that paper?" So I've been playing hooky for a few days, doing fun stuff like this, so I'm kind of in the hot seat. So I'll say, I was hanging out with Erica and Dapper and Emery and David Neff.
Look them in. We held him hostage in the after show.
So, real quick, I wanted to throw out a kind of like a philosophical challenge or a philosophical discussion here. I posted this on the Debate Evolution Reddit subreddit today about what would actually be a better quote unquote design. One of the young Earth creationist model where God creates species or kinds within distinct boundaries that they can no longer that they can only adapt within limits, or would a better design be create a universe, create the parameters of the universe so that life can evolve and adapt pretty much everywhere in the universe through abiogenesis and natural means? Wouldn't that be a better design? Because if you're designing a universe for life, it would make sense for life to exist pretty much everywhere in the universe of some sorts, even if it's not life as we know it on Earth. I think the fact is that if I were an intelligent designer, I would create the universe in a way that life would be possible in anywhere in the universe.
I have a couple of responses. This actually relates to something that Dapper brought up in our debate on Modern Day Debate about 2.5 weeks ago. the problem.
Which was a great time, by the way.
Oh, great!
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that was easily one of the best debates I've ever watched.
Yeah, everyone agreed on that, actually. There were a ton of people who were like, that was an awesome conversation to watch, really enjoyable. And I think, too, something that was great is that it stayed in the realm of, like, comprehensibility, I guess, for everyone, which was nice. I thought that was sweet, you know?
Thank you. So the point was about good and bad design. Bad design... We tend to anthropomorphize things in terms of what would be good for us. And it's just like if a designer, like a human designer, made a Rube Goldberg machine, he builds it for his delight and amusement, not for the sake of the Rube Goldberg machine itself. I mean, that may seem kind of strange to look at it that way, but the design is for the benefit of the designer, not the designee. And so we were talking about bad designs, and Dapper pointed out, he said, well, then, design proponents were saying, they try to have it both ways, with good and bad designs. And the way that a design is judged to be good or bad is by the designer, not by the designee. And the specific example in biology that I had were these Terminator trader seeds that were made by Monsanto. And they were made specifically to, the farmers would buy them from Monsanto and they would plant them, but they would never, the seeds that they bore. So like if you had a corn or something, if your crop was corn, you couldn't plant the corn. The farmers couldn't plant the corn again. They'd have to go back to Monsanto. And so I was saying, this is like God making, if we think about it, Monsanto's trying to subjugate the farmers. It's just kind of mean.
To be fair, they nenever sold those.
Huh?
They did patent that, but they never sold it.
Correct. Because I think there was an outrage. So I was
a little bit.
There's been cases where there's self-destructive designs, and it has to be looked at from the standpoint of the designer, not the designee. Of course, it really sucks for people that are struck with diseases and all night. I totally get that. So,
by the way, I guess I'll point out my position on GMOs is that they are very good, that they are necessary, and I fully support biotechnology. I'm not saying anything about Monsanto or anything about the corporations behind them, but I think that it is a very important technology to develop.
Yeah, if we're going to be able to feed people in a sustainable way, genetic engineering is going to have to be part of that. There is not another option that has presented itself, other than simply widespread refusal to reproduce by humanity. Those are the only options.
That ain't gonna happen.
No. Turns out that reproducing is something people like to do. So,
kinda, yeah, that tends to be a thing that people like.
Yeah.
For some reason, people are irresistibly attracted to babies.
Yeah, and to each other, which also helps.
Yeah.
That does help, yes.
But one thing that I would say, Sal, in that area is it's fair to say that the design does not have to be amenable to the designed thing, right? So you could even imagine a somewhat morally questionable person trying to use custom genetic engineering on a human to amuse him and coming out with something that he finds amusing, but that particular resulting human would find to be a rather unpleasant life. And then you could say, well, was that bad design? The answer would be, of course, well, from a design standpoint, no. But in order to do that, you have to be able to reliably assess the intent of the designer. And one of the problems there is with, say, Monsanto, we can just say, hey, what was your point here? What were you trying to do? The problem then comes that God has been remaining primarily silent on his design goals for organisms in general. Like if you said, hey, God, what is the deal with, say, the low metabolic rate in carnivorans for theobromine that makes dogs susceptible to chocolate poisoning, whereas primates have for no particular reason that we can tell, because most primates are never exposed to many theobromines, they have a gigantically high metabolic rate for these chemicals, which is why it takes enormous amounts of chocolates for humans to experience chocolate poisoning. Although I have had it, it's not fun.
How does a dinosaur get chocolate?
Things I learned today.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I didn't know people get chocolate poisoning. What are the symptoms of chocolate poisoning?
It's very mild in humans. It's usually just nausea and vomiting if it's severe enough. And then you're fine.
So I'd like to add something to that. Just I was just thinking while you guys were chatting, and I kind of maybe Sal, maybe you and Dapper already discussed this, but with regard to the designer concept, I think where I kind of trip up with that, where that kind of falls short for me, is that the criteria by which ID folks tend to use to define a design tends to be what humans consider to be good designs. And then by that, I almost feel like the logic has flipped a little bit in the opposite direction, at least in this conversation, into saying, well, you can't always know the designer's motivations. Because from that perspective, where I'm sitting, it kind of feels like it's done like a 180 in that realm. Like, I guess from my understanding of scripture, which is not great, so feel free to put me through the ringer for my theology understanding.
All right, everyone, throw your Bibles at Erica.
I know, yeah. Well, this is not an area that I am.
That would be dangerous if I did that. I've got some heavy Bibles in my place.
my Bible actually has a nice leather bind. It feels almost soft, but to my knowledge, right, the whole concept of humans understanding what a good design looks like kind of comes from the whole humans being made in God's image, right? At least in part. So I guess my question would be, how do you differentiate the designs that are detectable by humans versus the designs that are completely above our comprehension?
We're actually facing that. It kind of began with kind of our research with the cell. We knew it was sophisticated, but we didn't understand how it was put together. And we're still learning how it's put together, meaning we don't know. Hang on. Are you okay? Okay. Thank you. Meaning that we know that some of these parts are here or there, but we don't know what they do, what their role is. Because sometimes when you put a probe in a cell, you try not to kill it in the process. So it's very hard to actually see how things operate. So a lot of times we kind of know, and that's sometimes we would just guess that it has a function. We don't actually know what it is. And that's still an open question where we think, like in the case of the NIH and code, some people are arguing this is a very sophisticated machine, that the DNA, a large fraction of it is actually functional for structural purposes, what they call the 4D nucleome project. So even apart from the idea of intelligent design versus evolution, just from the standpoint of just the medical scientist trying to deduce what something actually does, we can actually look at it in that context. Like, okay, we have all these pieces. Do they do anything? And if they do, what do they do? So sometimes we actually guess, independent of the kind of like the ultimate questions of origins and intelligent design. It's still an active, controversy. I don't know if that responded to Erica's point.
I think I get where you're coming from. I guess for me, I would love to see from the ID group, I would love to see something that is a little bit more empirical with regard to what criteria constitutes a design versus what criteria constitutes, because to my understanding, right, most creationists, ID or Young Earth or Old Earth even, there tends to be this idea of like the kinds, and then there is a set amount of change that can occur within said kinds, and they're all kind of diverging from that original design. And I would assume that since this is a big assumption, I suppose, but I would assume that since most of these creationists would accept that natural selection is the one that is at play within those small changes within the kinds, that would lend itself to some means by which we can detect the difference between a divine design in the progenitor organism versus the non-designed product of the mechanism in nature, if that makes sense.
If I could show a picture here, I'm gonna.
It's your stream, Sal. You can do whatever you want.
Yes, it's your stream. It's your channel.
None of us are going to tell you no, Sal.
Well, I didn't want to interrupt the flow of conversation. This is an example of something, and I use this in the origin of life debate. It's really nice. Oh, now I know what the point I was making. We can actually, there's a subtle difference between inferring design versus function. So, for example, this one is clearly a design, Well, one, because we know human designers can make stuff like this. It's just reasonable to say a human did this, not some, not like a tornado, mixing the cards or,
right. We've seen instances of humans making houses of cards.
Right. So I'm just picking deliberately a mundane example. We can't say that this thing even has any function, but we can say that from a design perspective, and again, this is a human design, that it's unlikely that the cards from initial condition of random position and orientation could assemble it this way. We can therefore say it was intelligently designed. And so there are various structures in origin of life where we may not necessarily say we know what, we don't have to frame the problem in terms of purpose, because then we're adding a little bit of metaphysics when we start to say teleology and purpose.
Right.
But we can say this is a structure that is improbable, at least in the origin of life sense, if we have structures there in terms of the chemistry, that it's possible, but it's not probable. And so there are some things we can say are designed without having to use the word function.
Right. So I guess the question that I have in relation to that is, how do we tell if something is designed or not designed? And the thing about the reason why I don't really like that analogy is because with organisms, we have a genetic code, so to speak, that can replicate and pass on, and natural selection acts on that and selects the best traits and rejects the bad ones. So I don't see that as a fair analogy.
Well, there's a reason that we focus a lot on the origin of life, because then it's chemistry. The statistics are a little bit more straightforward. And Change Tan and Rob Stadler's book will at least argue from first principles of chemistry that life is the first life, whatever it was, the first cellular life, is in a chemical condition that is far from chemical equilibrium. It's just not, it's very abnormal for it to spontaneously assemble into a cell, even over long periods of time, just like the cards will not spontaneously assemble to there. So I was trying to answer that sometimes we may not be able to describe things in terms of function and make a design inference, because that we're adding a little bit of teleology and purposefulness, and then that leads to philosophical things. Now, from a operational standpoint, meaning let's say one is a biophysicist studying the bird magnetic compass. That's like one of my favorite topics. They'll say, okay, we'll just treat it like it's a human trying to make a magnetic compass. And I think it's perfectly legitimate to say, okay, let's just suppose that and kind of just do a compare contrast with how it compares and contrasts with human compasses, human made compasses. And that might inform us on how this thing operates. And so just from a research standpoint, without any of the higher metaphysical questions, I think that's perfectly legitimate. And that's actually what they're doing in practice. But,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go on. Well, I was about to say, it's very hard, though, once they start going down that route, the ID proponents are going to start quoting it and say, you see, they just can't get away from calling it codes or compasses or motors.
I think one thing there is, this is a criticism I have of a lot of the ID literature, which is they tend to take people using anthropomorphism for the sake of ease of speaking far too seriously. So, for instance, if I say, humans, it's very hard for us to talk without anthropomorphizing things that really don't have anything much to do with humans or the way humans act. So, for instance, even saying it's raining outside, and what's it's kind of the sky, I guess. The sky isn't doing something. Things are happening there. There's no agent that's causing, these water droplets to coalesce around a nucleus of some suspended particulates in the air. And then because of the relative humidity, enough of them coalesce that the rain stops. Basically, its terminal velocity gets high enough to just fall as raindrops. But when we say it's raining, we're ascribing some kind of agentness that doesn't really exist. Similarly, if I say, okay, the claws of cats are designed to grip into prey while not losing the sharpness of the claws while walking because of the retractable claws. I am not implying a designer when I say that. What I'm saying is they are good at doing this, but because trying to walk around these anthropomorphic phrasings is just annoyingly difficult, most people won't bother. And one of the things you have to remember is, we got to be honest here. Generally speaking, the mainstream scientific community pays virtually no attention to the ID proponents. They are not writing in opposition to them. They're not.
Yeah, and by the way, I would also point out that's why we say stuff like stars are factories for the heavier elements.
Right, or we describe them as having life cycles.
Right. They forge them. They forge heavier elements together, and the heaviest elements being forged in a hypernova, like here's from NASA.gov. Astronomers discover massive star factory in the early universe. Astronomers, including Matt Bedford, etc., have discovered a dust-filled massive galaxy churning shards when the cosmos was merely 800 million years old. Very interesting. So yeah, these are anthropomorphic things that we use all the time. It's not literally a factory, but it's there to help us understand what's going on.
Can I say one weird, slightly off-topic thing?
Yes.
Go right ahead.
The fact that we differentiate between the prefixes super and hyper is a little weird because they just both mean over, and one's Latin and one's Greek. But apparently Greek is more powerful than Latin. And I don't know why. They're both super and hyper are literally both just the prepositions in those two languages that mean over, and they're cognates. They share the same Proto-Indo-European root. That's why they sound similar.
Yeah,
Yes.
hypernova, supernova. Is there any difference between the two?
In linguistically speaking, no. Like the Greek word and the Latin word just mean the same thing. Like if you wanted to say that a book was over the table, in Greek you'd use hyper, and in Latin you'd use super.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say I'm running out of gas, and I'm probably going to be up half the night because I got a letter from the boss. So I better get cracking. I've been.
So Dapper, Erica, Emery, do you guys want to continue this discussion on my channel?
I mean, I can. It is midnight, but it's also Friday, so I can stay up a little bit late.
Yeah,
I can probably do it for a little bit.
Yeah, I won't be able to join you all. So any of you guys in the chat that want to arrange something, I'll leave it open for a little bit so you can talk amongst yourself.
Go in here.
I'll try to monitor it if you want to announce it. So this was kind of a short after show, and I really wanted to thank. I'm just thrilled that you all came here, and I think it's kind of nice when we have a short show because then we don't get sick of each other, and we hope we meet again. I wanted to address that point about function. I try to assiduously in design arguments, I try to say, drop that term, talk in terms of probability only. And you could say, okay, it's improbable that natural selection and random mutation can achieve that physiological process. And that was an example with the eukaryotic cell. That's the one that I'm trying to argue. I'm trying to avoid the teleological terms and then just focus on probabilities. So
I'm so sorry.
Yes.
No, please.
When John is talking about codes and languages and translation, I'm just like, yeah, John, that's kind of arguing by analogy. It's going to be more rigorous when you argue from the actual hardware and just use statistics and try to just exercise all of the teleological language. Then it's a more rigorous argument. So, Erica.
I was actually going to ask you something else, just something that I would love to chat with you at some point on, just because I've been curious about it for a little while, and I kind of wanted to pick your brain a little, and I was wondering I didn't think tonight would be a good time to do it, but since it's I didn't want to spring a question on you without having a chance to mull it over, because I always hate when that happens, when folks are like, hey, here's kind of a bigger question. But then I'm like, oh man, I don't know. Like, give me a second to think about it. But seeing as you and I would agree on the merits of phylogeny, in your case to a certain point, and in my case fairly generally, I'd love to pick your brain at some point on how that works with humans and the relationship to other primates. I'd be really interested in like picking your brain at some point on that.
Yes. I have a theory that I've been putting forward. Before I forget, I just wanted to say something. You said it seems a lot of people that are in the ID movement or creationists have had personal experience. I didn't have a chance to mention. I didn't mention it in my debate tonight, but I have. And so I knew that when I was talking to the people out there who are Christians or who suspected they've experienced miracles, that's at a personal level, that's just really hard to run away from. And so if people have wondered, it's like, yeah, I had. And sometimes you think, well, maybe I'm just hallucinating or something. And that's one reason I studied the creation science thing. I didn't come from a fundamentalist background. I was, I raised Roman Catholic, and I accepted evolution. So I just had to point that out because I think in your after show, after our talk, you might have mentioned that in passing. I said, Erica totally gets it. Yeah, there's some that have had, it seems a lot of them have had. So back to your point, and maybe shortly around midnight, I'm going to just shut this down. So guys, if you want a separate open mic,
go to my channel
now or forever hold your peace.
By the way, guys, I will say I'm hosting an open mic little discussion on my channel. Erica, Dapper Dino, the link to the YouTube and the StreamYard is in his
already got it.
Awesome. And Leo confirmed that he will be there. So
thank you, by the way, Sal, for hosting this, and thank you so much for a super fun discussion this evening. I really enjoyed listening. So
thank you. So I think Dapper was right. The question of the resurrection is very important, but how that related to something I overheard was that, if you have a personal experience, some of these other questions about history, it starts to become, it's important, it's meaningful, but some things will just start to take priority in terms of the way you view things. I tried to communicate that a little bit when I said about Charles Duke and the blind girl. And I appreciated TJump's honesty. He said, if that happened to him, he'd look for a natural explanation.
Yeah. And if I
totally, I'm actually kind of, it's been sobering or surprising because I never expected that. But until someone told me that 2 years ago, that was Tracy Harris. So I'm finding that's kind of more common than I thought.
Can I respond to that real quick?
Yes.
I think I would also tend to look for a more natural explanation first, and if I couldn't find one, then be more open to it. And the reason why is that so many other religions and pretty much every denomination has their own unique miracle healing stories and stuff like that. And it's difficult for me to know, like, obviously I don't think they're all lying, but they're not unique to one individual or one religion. So it's very hard to say, okay, this objectively proves this particular religion or this particular faith.
And I get that. So before I say goodbye, Erica had an outstanding question. How does this relate to primate phylogeny? I've said that it looks like to me, so why would God create a prokaryote and then a eukaryote and archaea and then all these other creatures? I just like the idea that I tried to put forward today, that the universe is optimized for scientific discovery. So there's like a stairway to understanding. We have all these model organisms, and that phylogeny, instead, the way I view it is that it's kind of a stairway to, we choose some model organisms like yeast. We really love yeast, and they serve certain purposes for understanding human physiology. Yet the primates serve another. And I'm sorry to hurt your feelings, but I was like, oh yeah, the best model organisms are primates. Let's chop them up,
No, I know. Believe me. Yeah, I
Yep.
I've grappled with that myself too, because on one hand, of course, I want diseases to be cured for humans. That's of the utmost importance. But it's also a really big bummer.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, that's what I tried to say. So you have that stairway. It's really nice. We have rats. And for the first time, I actually felt sorry for rats when I saw what they did to some of them in these experiments. I felt really, really
But
that's
Sal,
just so cruel.
Do you know why rodents tend to be good model organisms for humans?
I'm sorry?
Do you know why we tend to use rodents as good model organisms for humans?
No.
So just outside of primates are colugos, and this is in the nested hierarchy. But colugos are rare and hard to raise, and they're kind of worthless as model organisms. But just outside of colugos plus primates is the gliers, which includes the rodents and the lagomorphs. So that's your mice, rabbits, rats, guinea pigs. So one of the things is biochemically and genetically, it's very hard to find a good model organism that is as close to humans that will reproduce as quickly as rats or mice.
Yes. Well,
Yeah, that's quite interesting.
Thank you for that. And then there's this new research I've been, a lot of ID proponents have jumped on this one, and we can actually do structural predictions without X-ray crystallography just based on sequence similarity and difference. We're not the only lab that's working on it. And there are other angles we can approach it. And it's really amazing because I said, well, maybe one way we could test this hypothesis, let's run this without one entire branch of a nested hierarchy. And I'm predicting, I want to do this experiment, like say on collagen or some other protein. It should fall apart. That means the way the nested hierarchy is filled out is exactly what we need. And it's actually a very nice design feature for why we have this diversity. So that's another thing that's maybe like 3 years way out in advance.
That'd be really neat. That'd be really neat.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do my undergrad on that.
Yes. Well, I mean, the reason I was looking into this, just in all honesty, when I thought about, well, why 98%? Why did you make that chimp 98% so similar to us? I said, Lord, if you wanted us to be creationists, you would just make human beings and then nothing else. I said, you'd make us, well, at least you'd make me a creationist easier.
Yeah, I
saw that chimp. I said, that's just kind of hard to swallow. And
By the way,
so I've been pondering this problem for a long time, and I've been pondering the nested hierarchy.
Yeah.
So it's something that
genetically
bothered me.
and genetically, humans are much closer to chimpanzees than lions are to tigers.
Yeah.
And that's interesting.
Wow, I didn't know
And
that.
by the way,
Much closer.
just
Actually, side note, very quickly, also closer to chimps than rats are to mice, which was also a hard pill to swallow.
I didn't know
that is
that. So I learned something.
interesting.
Things
So,
I learned today.
interesting. So yeah. Anyway, guys.
You know
Just a
what
little
you
bit,
guys may have saved me here. I'll just tell the boss I was hanging out with other biologists and so
Yeah, so we're peer reviewing with each other. That's
See,
Very
I knew there was a reason I got you guys together. Since
Well,
you're
now-
meeting at David's Neff's channel, I'd like to just say thank you to all the people that came out to the debate and then this after show. And I'd like to thank all my fellow guests here. You can join them on David Neff's channel. It's very easy to find his channel, YouTube/David P. Neff.
Yes.
And I meant to ask you, there is another David Neff, but you are the David P.
yeah,
Neff.
the primary, the alpha David.
Yes.
Yes.
They're-
And
That's
interestingly
what
enough-
P stands for. David Primary Neff.
Yes, we'll go
And
with that.
Emery, thank you for joining
And,
us. And I apologize that we lost, that I lost our great discussion on Kent Hovind and
I
Dr. Dan.
am
and
free
PZ Mike.
until the middle of January, so just get with me. We can always pull it back together or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. By the way,
So let me go in order here. David, Dapper, Erica, Emery,
All right.
and all of the audience. Have a merry and blessed Christmas. Take
You
care
too,
and God
Sal.
bless you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
all right.